Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome back to tonight's second half. Before we get into tonight's second half, which is filled with some very interesting and new video clips, also some very horrifying encounters, I'd like to share a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and the membership are in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they really do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's second half, shall we? Today's first encounter comes to us from Cass County, Texas. Hello everyone, my name is Rooster, obviously a nickname. I'm currently on active duty Army for about 20 plus years now. I've been contemplating for the last several years on whether or not I should share this. My encounter happened in 2000, about 20 years ago. It was me, my mom, and my father out fishing in a small wash on the side of the road. So I was living in Oklahoma and talking to my mom. She said they found a new fishing hole off the side of the road where they had been catching a lot of fish. I know the area, so I was pessimistic. I drove down one weekend to visit to go and check out this fishing hole. Lo and behold, there was a good fish there. So I got down and fished with my mom and dad in the wash several times. This one particular time is when the sighting happened. We were all fishing this wash for several hours and the sun started to set. It was just getting dark when me and my mom, now on the opposite side of the road from my dad, began to hear footsteps in the water. This is how the conversation went. Mom, do you hear that? Me, yes. Mom, what is it? Me, it must be a deer. Mom, no, it sounds like it's walking. Me, yes, a deer walking through water. You can hear its steps. Mom, no, it sounds like it's walking on 2 feet. 'Cause a deer has 4 legs and you'd be able to hear them. Me, I don't know, sounds like a deer to me. Mom, listen closely. Whatever it is walking on 2 legs coming this way. So at this point, I'm unsure of what I'm hearing now. I'm now leaning towards hearing footsteps of a person and not a deer. We listened for several more minutes as whatever this was getting closer to us and more distinct. As we look up the wash is when we see this thing casually walking down the wash. At this point, I'm convinced now it's a person. Mom, look at that thing. What is it? Me, it's got to be a hunter. Mom, walking in the river? Me, well, might be someone around here trying to scare us because they don't want us fishing here. So the entire time we're having this discussion, this thing's just walking toward us. As it's right in front of us, head on. You can see it's massive.
I'm thinking it's still just a guy in a ghillie suit. Then I immediately think to myself, how deep is this water? It's pretty soft bottom, just like a marsh. This thing is walking smoothly enough to just throw water effortlessly. Again, it's dusk at this point, and this thing's literally 20 feet in front of us, in the wide open. Since it's dusk, just past sunset, where you still have that moment of visibility, you can see how big it truly is. There was a piece of fencing there and some stumps in its way, so it turned to our left and walked up the hill. At this point, we yelled out to our dad, "Let's get the hell out of here." He was confused at what we were screaming about, so we chucked everything in the car and left. I don't remember talking about it much beside, what the hell was that? After we got home, I never talked to my mom or dad about it. I ended up coming back to Oklahoma after that weekend was over. None of us ever talked about it again after that moment. Not sure why. To me, it was like a distant memory that happened quickly. I was unsure of what the hell had just happened anyway, so I never thought about looking into it any further. I truly believe people are seeing what they claim, but it's so incomprehensible at that moment you are witnessing it that your brain is not comprehending. That's what I felt like for me. It was like my brain was stuck in the middle of understanding what I'm seeing and not understanding. My mom passed away in the next year of 2001. I never got to ask her thoughts about that day. I do doubt myself sometimes. I never smelled a foul odor. It never made a noise. It didn't see us standing right in front of it. If it saw us, it didn't run or try to hide. I had no idea what it was that I saw. All I know is I'm 6'1". I was standing on the road, and the water line is 3 to 4 feet below the road. This thing was eye level, if not taller, and twice as wide as me at the time. Just massive. I couldn't make out any details besides just how big it was. I grew up in these woods, fishing, hunting, whatever. I never heard or talked about anything like this, nor have I seen anything like this. This area is not known for bears, I don't think. I never saw one, but if a bear can walk on 2 legs through a creek, turn and walk up an embankment on 2 legs, then I guess I saw a bear. Today's second encounter. One summer day in Albion, New York. When I was a kid, I went for a walk in the woods I commonly frequented. I hadn't gone back for a while because one time my boyfriend at the time and I were about to enter the woods, but we decided not to because we heard what sounded like several howls. I'm talking probably 7 or 8. The sounds grew and we decided to leave. This wooded area was off a residential area, but there's a path that takes you almost like a hidden wooded area with a farm. So strange, because now that I think about it, I was so close to many homes, but never could find sight of them in these woods. There's even a huge, wide open field that leads to a more wooded path, like a huge break dividing the woods. I loved and missed going in the woods. I later went back there after maybe a good few weeks. As I walked, it had rained not long before and the ground was very soft. I saw the most enormous tracks I had ever seen in my life. The dog-like claw prints were bigger than my foot. How big are wolf prints? Anyway, I kept walking. The sun was out and it was a nice day. I started down the wooded path and sort of felt off, anxious. I kept trying to throw away that feeling. The woods have always been my sanctuary, my safe place. I always felt the most at home in these woods. I picked up a large stone in case I had to scare a possible threat off. I felt like everything would be fine when I saw the sun and the open break that separated the 2 woods. I got to the clearing and walked to the middle, when the loudest and deepest growl I had ever heard seemed to emanate through the woods, like the whole woods were growling at me. I really tried very hard to discern the location. I'm quite quite good at things like that. It truly emanated from everywhere. I was frozen in fear, and that was the first time in my life I knew what it felt like to be paralyzed by fear. I set the rock down knowing that pebble wouldn't do jack shit, a throwdown with whatever produced that growl. So I figured I'd just set it down. I literally said out loud something like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean any harm. I know now I am not welcome in these woods. Please let me leave." I got the courage to take a deep breath, and I felt like I could go. But I tore the hell out of there and never went back again. Honestly, I don't feel the same about the woods anymore after that. Today's third encounter comes to us from Humboldt County, California. This incident happened 41 years ago when I was 19 years old. My friend and I were bear hunting up in Humboldt County on the Hopa Indian Reservation. It was March, maybe April, and back then bear hunting was open year-long in Humboldt, and there were no limits. We were from Southern California and totally unfamiliar with the area. We stopped in a town of Trinity River. I believe the name was maybe Willow Creek. I'm really not sure. Anyway, we met some Native Americans in town and asked them if they knew any good hunting places for bear. They said they really didn't, but added there was an old man in the grocery store who may be able to help us. The Native Americans pointed to an old blue 1950 Buick parked in front of the store and told us that the car belonged to the old man. So we waited there until he came out. When he came back to his car, we introduced ourselves and asked him if he knew any good places to go hunt the bear. He told us it was pretty good up on the Hopa Indian Reservation and gave us some general directions. We ended up on an old deserted dirt road high in the mountains in my friend's dad's 49 four-door Chevy. We kept going up until we hit snow, started to fishtail, and the right rear wheel went out to the side. We set the handbrake and got out of the car to evaluate the situation. We decided to get the bumper jack out of the truck and jack the car up, and then push it off the jack back onto the road. The plan worked, and all four wheels were back on the road. We backed down the road until we came to a place where we could turn around. By now it's dusk, and we decided we'd have better pitch a tent before it got too dark. At the turnaround spot next to the road, we saw a big pine tree and decided to set camp up under the tree. By the time we pitched a 4-man umbrella tent in the dark, we all put our sleeping gear and firearms in the tent and lied down. And we're talking for about 10 minutes when we heard the first grunt outside of the tent. We both pretended that we didn't hear anything and kept talking. Then it did it again. And this time we both stopped, and I asked my friend if he had heard that as well. He said he did, and also heard it the first time. I said, "Yeah, me too." Now we both shut up and listened. We could hear it circling the tent because the ground was covered with bark, and we could hear the bark crunching under its feet. We could also hear its very loud breathing. By the sound of its footsteps and breathing, we figured whatever it was huge and walking on 2 legs. It circled the tent several times. We decided that one of us should go out and see what it was. Neither one of us wanted to because we were so scared. So we decided to flip a coin and see which one of us would go out. My friend lost. I suggested that before he went out, it might be wise to fire the .44 mag out of the tent flap first. He concurred and stuck the barrel out of the flap and fired 5 shots. We then both went out. He had the .44 and I held the light. We looked all around and didn't see a thing. We went back to the tent, lied down, and we were trying to figure out what had just been outside of the tent. We had never heard of the Sasquatch. We had been talking for about 5 or 10 minutes when we heard a very loud, high-pitched scream that lasted for about 5 seconds. It sounded like it was 50 to 100 yards away. We looked at each other and asked, "What the heck is that?" That was one heck of a scream. We talked a little longer and finally went to sleep. The rest of the night was uneventful. We got up the next morning, went outside, and looked around the circumference of the tent for any footprints or signs. We couldn't see anything because the ground was covered with years of accumulated bark from the huge pine tree we had camped under. We wondered many times what it was that had been outside of our tent that night and often talked about it. Then, one day several years later, I happened to be in a barber shop getting a haircut, picked up a magazine, and it had the now famous controversial picture of a female Sasquatch on the cover. I read the article, and in the article there was a map with an X on it. The X indicated where the picture was supposedly taken. The X on the map wasn't far from where we had camped that night. That's when I made the connection, and since then, after reading about many encounters, I'm pretty well convinced that the animal we had heard outside of our tent 41 years ago was definitely a Sasquatch. Today's fourth encounter comes to us from Cold Springs, California. This is a horrible encounter. A 10-foot man led sheriff deputies into a dark, brushy area adjoining Peter Pan subdivision west of Cold Springs. The officers were unable to spot the monster, but returned with an equally horrifying report of unidentifiable shrieking sounds. There was definitely a creature in those woods. Deputy William Huntley confirms. "I've never heard anything like it," Huntley's partner, Albert Miller of Cold Springs, a veteran woodsman, agreed. "I've never heard a sound like that in all my years in the woods." The search was touched off by an anonymous telephone call to the sheriff's office at 8:30 p.m. The caller refused to give his name on the grounds of, "You'll think I'm crazy and put me in a straitjacket." He reported seeing a man at least 9 to 10 feet tall in the road by an old gravel pit north of Peter Pan Tract. Huntley quoted the caller. "It was moving around. It appeared to be human, but was the most awful thing I had ever seen." Huntley said the caller added, "I'm scared. I'm an adult. I'm not crazy. I'm not drunk. I don't even drink." Huntley said a second man then came on the phone to confirm the story. The second man had not seen the monster, Huntley said, but he reported seeing tracks more than 14 inches long. Huntley and Miller then drove to the area. In first radio dispatch to the Sonora Sheriff's Office, they reported hearing sounds, something like a human in distress. "It's heading right towards the car. Here it comes," Huntley advised. After a delay, he reported, "Now it seems to be circling the car. Sounds more and more like an animal of some kind." But the two officers reported they could see nothing in the heavy brush. "It's definitely not a bear," Huntley radioed. "Albert thinks it's more likely a mountain lion, but it's not a mountain lion noise." The two officers shouted at the creature and noticed their shouts did not seem to scare it. As they attempted to move closer, however, the sound seemed to move away. The officers were forced to head back to Cold Springs when the patrol car's gas supply ran low. They did return to the spot a short time later and found the unidentifiable creature still shrieking. Huntley said they stayed in the area until about 1:30 in the morning, but were still unable to spot the source of the sounds. The officers returned to the scene after daylight but found nothing to explain the mystery. There were no tracks, nothing to indicate anything at all. Huntley advised he noted the area as brushy and rocky. The ground was frozen. Today's fifth encounter comes to us again from Humboldt County. We were a little excited, more like scared shitless. There was enough light just to make out that whatever it was moving on two legs. We found where it had gouged out the soft earth on the stream it had crossed, no discernible footprints. But whatever made the gouge was huge. We had a whack, wild-ass guess, at the length, over 19 inches. It was longer than the tip of my extended fingers to the elbow. The grass going across the meadow didn't allow for footprints, but was pressed down several hours later. We didn't follow the trail toward the trees. It had been watching us for around 15 minutes, give or take 5. I was asleep when my friend woke me up. Said we heard something moving above us on the exposed rock just above our camp. He had his 9mm personal protection for the typical axe murderer you meet while you're camping in hand, and was a little wound up. We listened to it move around with an occasional skip like someone was jumping a short distance to another rock. It moved behind us, then down into the meadow that surrounded the stream we were camping on. We saw it cross the stream and slip as it went across the other side. It moved across the meadow at a quartering angle away from us and into the tree line. We definitely knew it wasn't a bear. We had several run-ins with bears trying to get our food when we camped out at Yosemite. Thought we would get away from the crowds on this backpacking trip. Good call, huh? Once we calmed down, we discussed what we think we saw. We both came to the same conclusion. I know we didn't hallucinate. Our eyes had time to adjust before we finally got the visual of it moving across the meadow. We stayed awake until we had enough light to look the area over, and then beat feet the hell out of there. Today's last encounter. My experience takes place around the end of October, close to the end of deer season in Alpine County, California, about 82-83. Myself and 3 other hunters were getting the last deer hunt in Pacific Valley. We'd hunted this area many times over the years. However, this time, we were the only ones left in the valley. Myself and a friend of mine were hunting together near Bull Run Trailhead about 5 miles from camp. That day seemed odd after we got up the hill because we could hear no sounds or see anything moving. We both have backgrounds in biology. We were on the edge of the meadow and had something like a rock fly over our heads. We both heard it hit. We could see nothing around, and our hair started to stand on the back of our necks. After checking the area, we decided to go down the hill back to camp. The whole way down the trail, something paralleled us, just out of sight. Every few hundred feet, it would roll or throw a rock alongside the trail. I dropped to the knee a couple of times and swung my rifle toward the area where the boulders were rolling. Couldn't see anything through my scope. We were definitely getting a little shook up at this point and could not figure out what was following us or rolling or throwing rocks at us. We've never seen any bears while hunting there and ruled out the possibility of a bear trying to scare us by throwing rocks. This continued until we got to the dirt road that took us back to camp. I would say this went on for about 20 minutes, or about a mile. Once we were back at camp, we related the experience to the other 2 guys. The rest of the afternoon, we noticed that no animals were around. We always have had animals around camp: chipmunks, birds, the occasional pine marten. After dinner, we sat around the campfire and we were getting our gear ready for the next day. Almost bedtime when across the creek, out of our lantern light, a large tree went down. It was a huge crash. It could have been a natural occurrence, but with the earlier events, we decided that something did not want us in this valley. We decided that no one was going to get any sleep that night anyway, so we packed up and left for home. I've only been back there one time after, and saw through the tent screen something picked up my red ice chest with a white lid. I yelled at it, and it put the ice chest down and ran off. I couldn't see what it was. My partner dismissed it as a deer going through our camp and went back to sleep. I've never heard anything else the rest of our trip, nor have I heard a deer being able to pick up an ice chest.
Something that's going to unfold. It's been unfolding for months. It's going to continue to unfold for months. Something that's going to unfold. It's been unfolding for months. It's going to continue to unfold for months.
All right, folks, I hope you all enjoyed tonight's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for all of your support. Your support is what makes this channel so special. You guys, the community you have created in the comment section is truly amazing. Helping each other out, sharing information, awesome. Also, you guys are the reason why this channel continues to grow and go. The gratitude is unmeasurable that I have for all of you, so thank you. With that, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, the precious, precious gift we are granted, our pets, our family, and friends. Guys, these creatures are real. They're out there. Share a little bit of information with those you love and care about. It may just save their life someday. God bless you all.